Some weeks I might be shopping in store, other weeks I might shop online. So I think all of this is here to stay and it's not going away.
Hello and welcome to the Next Level Supply Chain with GS1 US, a podcast in which we explore the mind-bending world of global supply chain, covering topics such as automation, innovation, unique identity, and more. I'm your co-host, Reed.
And I'm Liz.
And welcome to the show.
So today we have a great topic to discuss with you all, one that is near and dear to my heart, but also to everyone who visits a grocery store. Reed, are you the grocery store shopper in your family?
Only one day a week. The other days are my wife, and she does the best job. I just kind of like whatever we forgot, I go back and get.
So you're totally familiar with the weird changes that have been happening the last several years?
100%.
Awesome. So today we are talking to Ryan Richard, VP of Community Engagement, who has extensive experience in the grocery world. He's worked at large consumer brand organizations and now is at GS1 US. I also have the honor to be on his team. Ryan, welcome to the show. Would you please give us a little bit of your background before we get started?
Absolutely. Good to be here with both of you this afternoon. So I am the Vice President of Community Engagement at GS1, and I head up our community engagement for the retail grocery industry. And Liz, as you highlighted, I was in the CPG world for 17 plus years of my career before joining GS1. So I had different roles in supply chain, master data, finance, technology. So I've been around the supplier organizations and in the grocery space for quite a long time.
That's fantastic, Ryan. We're really happy to have you with us today and to talk about this. Now, prior to the pandemic, grocery and the web was, we're looking at it, we're kind of doing it. And the pandemic really forced grocery's hand, moving into web services, buy online, pick up in store, buy online, have delivered to the home. But this was a significant hurdle for a lot of grocers. Is web working or is it not working? What have we learned over the last 2 years in relationship to grocery and web?
So what I think we learned in the last 2 years, Reed, is that is here to stay. So the web is here to stay. Whatever is not working and what has worked, as a grocery industry, we're continuing to evolve. Things are continuing to change. And you look at the consumer, they're at the center of all this. They're the ones driving this change. So we had the pandemic come in and consumers are like, I'm at home. I don't want to go into a grocery store. I want to be able to, buy online, pick up in store. I want to do just buy online, have it delivered to my house. Those things were, they
were around.
They were around. They were lower adoption. Not everyone was doing it. I think the technology savvy people were doing it. People that lived in larger cities were doing the grocery delivery. But what happened in the whole country is everyone decided, hey, we're all shifting at the same time. So it became a differentiator. And a lot of the grocers had to catch up to that once we went into lockdown for COVID. They had to be there. Well, then what kind of happened is we started to inch back out is consumers are like, hey, I kind of like this convenience. I like to be able to go pick up my groceries in store, buy them online. I like to have sometimes meal kits delivered to my house. I want to be able to shop online and have it delivered via, Amazon Fresh, something like that. And also I want that ability to, send my husband, your case, back to the store to pick up everything I forgot. So there's, that real need to be back in store, and people want to have all of those experiences. Then they want what fits their lifestyle. So some days, some weeks I might be shopping in store. Other weeks I might shop online. So I think all of this is here to stay and it's not going away.
Interesting.
What are the brands saying, Ryan? So from a retail perspective, they're going to have to stay. They're going to have to continue to accelerate. We as consumers want it for the ease of getting our stuff, but what about the brands?
So I think from a brand perspective, one of the things we've seen some brands going direct to consumer. So they're adding that on their branded websites. So many of the CPG manufacturers, you can go to their websites and buy and have it delivered directly to you. Also, the other cool thing that's really kind of evolved is during the pandemic is go to a lot of branded websites now and find out where they're selling their products. So what retail outlets are housing their products. Before, it used to be you'd have to go online and kind of comb through different shopping lists. You'd have to go to stores and see like, hey, are they carrying this brand or this sub brand of a major brand that I like? And now that information is readily available. And I think from a branding perspective, it's only helping them. They're seeing that there's these different ways to meet the consumer as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. You've mentioned so many different ways. So, BOPIS, buy online, pick up in store, have it delivered to your house, direct to consumer. It seems like this smurge, right? This merge and mixture of everything that's happening. And then we also have grocerants, right? Restaurants that are turning into grocery stores and grocery stores that are turning into restaurants, pre-made meals and all this stuff. But even prior to this, Target and Walmart, you went there to buy clothes and things for your house and stuff and automotive needs and your general, and now they have massive grocery stores within them as well. What's the industry seeing on that side? I mean, if you're in a big city, you have these little bodegas and you have, these superstores and everything in between. What is the industry looking like going forward?
It's funny, Reed, that you say that. I live in a big city, so I have access to all of this stuff. So I've got the little bodega on the corner where I go pick up stuff on my way home from the train. But then I have the big supermarkets as well. I have the super centers, like I have the Targets, the Walmarts. I have all of that. And when you look at, you said that smurging and you said that word grocerant, and that word makes me giggle because, you can go to my major grocery store here in Chicago and you can have a glass of wine, have a cocktail, sit at a grand piano before you go grocery shopping. In a grocery store like that, like 10 years ago, you would have never thought of that. You would have been like, wait, right. I get a glass of wine before I go grocery shopping. You can also go downstairs and get in the same grocery store, you can get a cup of coffee and there's a whole area, kind of a cafe in it. So you can have a coffee. There's also a restaurant portion in the same grocery store. So there's like all these experiences. Plus I can do my mainstream grocery shopping. I think what you're starting to see is the consumer trends have shifted. So we talk about a lot of these prepared meals, grocery stores, like that's no longer a differentiator. Most of the major grocery stores now, they have that whole fresh prepared meal section. So you can go in and pick your stuff from a hot bar or pre-prepared stuff and take it home with you. It's no longer just the deli counter. I think the deli counter was what we were all used to seeing. And now you're seeing all of these other options. You're seeing these cafes. You're starting to see them at the superstores as well, like the Targets, the Walmarts. They have cafes attached to them or fast food outlets attached to them. That is becoming more mainstream. And then when you talk about even the convenience sector, convenience stores, when you're on the side of a highway or a gas station, like they're having these restaurants attached in part of that experience. So it's also kind of meeting the consumer for the convenience of what they're looking for. So grocery stores are not just the place to go get your groceries anymore. It's to get these other things that, make your life whole. You talked about the Targets and the Walmarts of the world. I think they were, those superstores, they were kind of those places where you went and you did some shopping and then they had some groceries. If you wanted to, you were in there picking up some shirts, some pants, some clothes, some auto part stuff. You're like, hey, I'll get some groceries. Now you're seeing in a lot of those companies, they're expanding their grocery selection to be even bigger so they can compete with the mainstream grocery store. So you don't have to just do a piece of your shopping. You can do all of your shopping. You can do that whole week's worth of shopping for groceries, not just a couple things while you're buying other stuff.
Yeah, I know, Liz, you have a question here, but I just want to round this out. You talked about the experience, and it is funny. I've seen this. My wife's like, go to that place over there. And they actually have like a bar inside. You can get growlers of, special beers and things. What was funny for me is traveling and going and meeting with customers and vendors and stuff. And they're starting to take people to grocery stores for lunch. Instead of going to a restaurant or a sandwich shop, it's like, they have great stuff. They make it fresh. And it's a completely different experience. And I remember doing that. And it's not, I think the first one I went to was like a Wegmans, but now I'm seeing them at like a Lowe's Food and, Food Line has different ones and ShopRites. And it's happening across the country at lots of different ones, whether they're small or big. So it's very interesting. This is intriguing. Liz, I know you had a question. I'm sorry I cut you off.
And to actually round that out, when Ryan and I were both in New Jersey for the first time, he took me to a grocery store for lunch. And I thought, what the heck are you doing? Why are we going to a grocery store for lunch? But it was delicious.
They have great sushi. That's why.
Yeah. Who knew? So anyway, when we're talking about these huge footprints of stores, and we know that these brands have so many products that they want to sell. And if we shift back to like pre-2020, and Ryan, you and I both worked at CPG companies with this huge SKU list and huge product assortment. How are brands thinking today after, well, I guess during 2020, plus how are they innovating so that the grocery store will still have enough choice for us as picky consumers, but not so much that they can't be resilient in the future?
Liz, it's funny that you say that, because that word SKU rationalization comes to mind. But if you go back before the pandemic, I think a lot of brands out there, they were just continuing to extend their SKUs. So they'd have a flavor for everyone's taste palette. So they kept expanding. And then what happened during the pandemic is all of their mainstream SKUs consumers were all now shopping for groceries at home because no one was eating out anymore. So all their main SKUs were having all this demand. So what they had to do is SKU rationalization. And what they did is they started to cut those underperforming SKUs. So there's no longer the breadth that there was maybe. I look at one of my favorite brands is, Kraft macaroni and cheese. I love it. I'm like a little kid. I love it. But that was one of the brands that like really took off during the pandemic, and all of the sub brands underneath that kind of started to get cut so they could focus on production for that main brand. So it was available for consumers. I think you're seeing that throughout the CPG space. I'd ask you two, what brands do you eat and that you see that some of your brands may have gone away during the pandemic as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, one of my favorite things in the world is Diet Coke, and everybody who knows me, and there was a lot of flavors of, that Coke had that started getting, cut. And I think that it's almost, and you guys might not understand this as well as I do. For those of you who can't see us, I have long hair. And when you cut your hair, it's almost getting back to that healthy, getting back to baseline, right? It may have been that silver lining that the brands needed to cut some of their length, right? And maybe they're more healthy and more sustainable in the future from a brand portfolio.
Yeah, I wasn't sure where you were going with that, having two bald gentlemen on your show here and talking about hair, but that was a great pull around. I do like the whole, we got to pull back a little bit to focus on what's right and move forward. So, Ryan, are there any technologies or processes, new innovation that are really rising above some of the others? We've seen some of this grab and go technology. We're seeing micro distribution centers put into grocery stores. We're seeing different types of BOPIS approaches, whether it be smart lockers or just-in-time pickup and scheduling. Is there anything that's sticking out to you in terms of innovations either with technology or innovations within process that are really rising above some others?
You covered this, the assortment of stores, the way the consumer is looking at this. I think one of the things, it's a cool technology, it's a creepy technology at the same time, is a lot of stores have these robots that go through and clean the floors. And you'll see them sometimes when you're grocery shopping, you'll see them walking through the store. And I forgot what chain does it, but they put eyeballs on this robot. And you now see this to make it look more friendly to the consumers who are walking through the store. But one of the innovations I've seen is that they're now using that for inventory as well. So that
inventory management.
While this robot's cleaning the store, it also can scan the shelves. They put cameras on it. They put sensors on it. So now it can do inventory real time. That's kind of a cool thing, because you're something that's already being done in the store. You're leveraging what's already being done to kind of expand that inventory management. Because a lot of times in the, inventory management, you had to do that weekly or monthly. It's a very manual process to do. And you can't just rationalize it from what's going out the front of your store, because what's being scanned out the front of the store doesn't account for things like shrink. So, the technology like that, I think, is pretty cool.
That's excellent. Yeah. It's really, it's always interesting to see, innovation happen in a time of, real need, right? Like we don't have to innovate just to innovate, but we have to innovate because we have to find a way around this issue, this problem, with the pandemic. It's very, very interesting.
When you talk about that, Ryan, like the new technologies, how do standards play into that?
So I think, as GS1, we talk about standards and, that's our bread and butter. That's what GS1 is all about. And I think unique identification is key to the grocery industry because you need to identify the product. Like our standards play right into that. We also need to identify locations in the supply chain. So, Reed, you talked about the dark stores, the distribution centers, turning grocery stores into distribution centers, part of the store. You need to uniquely identify those segments of the store or all those different locations in the supply chain where the product is. And we talk about inventory management all the time. We talk about traceability. Unique identification for location and product both play right into both of those.
Yeah, I've actually seen that with some of these micro distribution groups, whether it be Fabric or Takeoff Technologies and others that are looking into it. The database they use is the SKU. And when they have to customize the database for each store, it makes it hard for them to scale. And it adds more cost to the grocer as well. So having that standard identification across all environments really kind of helps. Ryan, with this, and I don't know, this could be a yes or no or I don't know type of answer, but is sustainability a topic that's coming up for you all within grocery? We talked about this buy online, pick up in store and delivery to home. And is sustainability coming into those conversations? Is it coming into packaging? Is it coming in at all? Or is it we have other issues we're driving through? Because we're hearing it from different industries.
Yeah. So from a grocery industry, you're absolutely right. Everyone's looking at these last mile delivery, all these different delivery options and the carbon footprint there. I think one of the things the grocery industry has been really focused on, and it was even pre-pandemic, is their whole take on sustainability was really on packaging. Let's reduce the size of our packaging and wasteful packaging. So you've seen a lot of companies move to more sustainable packaging, more sustainable materials, or they've shrank the size of their packaging and all the waste that was created by packaging. So I think the grocery industry's been ahead of that curve in regards to packaging. So that's where I see the real big focus right now in the grocery industry.
Awesome. And are we talking about with the grocery industry, have we started that conversation about leveraging 2D barcodes over 1D barcodes and having more information in there? Is that conversation started?
Yeah, absolutely. So you look at the grocery industry and we have this nice moniker called Sunrise 2027 that I'll just explain briefly. But really what that is by 2027, we're anticipating that the grocery industry will be able to scan out a 2D barcode through their front end point of sale systems. And from that perspective, we're talking about the consumer demand. That really helps the consumer get expanded product information. It helps these things we've talking about like inventory management, traceability. You can use all of that through a 2D barcode. So the industry is excited. They're testing and piloting out use cases right now. So there's more to come in that as we march towards 2027, Reed.
Right. And so I want to double down on that one there real quick. And for folks that, our listeners are across the board. Some are going to be grocery experts and they're not going to know anything about it. And, I just remembered how complicated the grocery industry is and the thin margins they work on. And, a lot of people don't realize is self-checkout is, the consumer, the shopper is the employee. They're pulling everything off. So when you move to the web, we added a lot more cost and service. How closely does the brands and the grocery retailers work together? So you mentioned before the robot cleaning the floors and now doing inventory. I started to envision right away, like, oh, that's really cool. So they're going to utilize computer vision and kind of see something. But computer vision, unless it's really stated there, has a really hard time of telling like batch and lot information, right? So I may have in a certain section of the grocery store, I have all of this produce, but I don't know if it's expired or not expired. But when you put a QR code on something or a 2D barcode on the front of a package, you could get a lot more information through computer vision and through a lot of other things. So I guess as one example, how close do they work together, and do they talk about things like, hey, we want to have this image, the barcode, on the front of the package versus the back of the package or the bottom of the package because it's going to make processes easier for automation? Or does that not come into conversation at all within the grocery business?
No, it is. And actually, that's at the top of the list of things that a lot of the brands and the retailers are looking at together, because as we evolve in this 2D, testing, is things like computer vision, inventory management, having that on the front of the package versus the back of the package, it makes things easier from that perspective. But also, it's also from a brand perspective, is if we're going to go down to one data carrier, where do they want to place it? What's best for the retailer? And all these other distribution channels have to be considered as well, because that product doesn't just flow through the grocery industry. I think that's what people forget, is like that product you see on store shelf, it can go into other industries. So they have to be conscious of placement for those industries as well.
That's very good. But they are talking about it. That's great to hear.
Yep.
Yes, and that's such a interesting point, because it takes you into the future. So what can 2D do? Can it enable consumers to have more information, not just at point of sale, but easy for me to say, consumer engagement? Where else do you think grocery is headed? Not just for 2027, right? But in the next few years. And how do you think like the consumer experience and the consumer expectations is going to shift that?
Yeah, I'm glad you didn't say like what's going to happen in the next 10 years, because I hate when people ask that question, because I think change is so rapid that if you ask me with my crystal ball what was going to be in 10 years, I don't know what it's going to look like. I think we're seeing this constant innovation and this constant retooling. We look back at the pandemic 2 years ago. We thought that, buy online, pick up in store, a lot of that technology, that was a 5-year, 7-year horizon. It got jump-started in 2 years because the brands and the retailers had to adapt to get product in consumers' hands. Mm-hmm. So I think, we're on these mini micro shifts now. So I think we're going to constantly be in this state of evolution and change. So I mean, what is it going to look like in 2 years? I can't tell you, but what I can tell you is that it's going to be consumer driven, and that there's going to constantly have to be this evolution to meet the consumer where they are.
See, I was hoping you were going to say 3D printed food. That's what I was hoping you were going to say.
That has no taste, Reed.
Yeah, I've seen that. But it's interesting. The times we live in are very, very interesting. And when you think back, just to where we were a short time ago and how much change has happened. And we're seeing things like smart garbage cans at home that'll be automatically tied to your retailer of choice, or retailers of choice. I mean, you already see it today. If you have a smart speaker in your house, whatever brand you like, you talk to it, it listens. It's already giving you recommendations on your shopping list. So we're already seeing it. We're not realizing it. And I really think that that's going to happen. We've all seen the refrigerators with web interfaces on the front, right? And create your list there. So it's amazing to me when it's not obvious to us. I know it's not obvious to me a lot of times, but then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, when did this happen? It's been happening for quite some time. So it's very, very interesting to see where we'll all go with this. Liz, did you have anything else we needed to cover?
I don't. I was going to ask Ryan one of our favorite closing questions, unless you have anything else.
No, I think I just wanted to make sure, because I was getting lost in some of this stuff and it was really interesting, but I was checking my notes and we did cover what I wanted to get to today. But yeah, go ahead. Start with your closing question.
Okay. So Ryan, what is your favorite piece of technology right now? It doesn't necessarily have to be for work. It can be in your personal life. It could be because I know you enjoy sailing. What is your favorite piece of technology?
Well, actually, my favorite piece of technology is kind of lame, but I love Bluetooth because it's made my life so much easier, because I have a speaker. Like, I love to listen to music and I love to pair it with my phone. So I can go anywhere in the house and pair it. I can get in my car, my phone pairs with Bluetooth. Like, I could put my earbuds in and Bluetooth. Like, Bluetooth has made my world easier because I don't have to have wires everywhere and always have to remember my wires.
Interesting. I like that. Okay, so this one we started and we've been sticking with it because we've been getting really educated. And this is, we would like to know what blows your mind. And it could be something that's happened right now. It could be something that happened when you were a kid or growing up or young adult or whatever, any part. And it doesn't have to be work related. It's just something that like, it was a eureka moment for you and it changed you, changed your point of view on the world. What blows your mind?
I think that's a great question, Reed. And as I think about that, I'm going to relate this back to, some of the things we talked about. The speed of change in the world right now is amazing. It like, we can't almost keep up as humans. I look back at the evolution of things and, one of the things I told you, I was a big music listener. The album came into play and that was around for like 40 some years. Then the cassette came in, that was around for like 15. We don't have to talk about the 8-track that was in there for a while, but then the CD came into play. Now everything's digital. Like, so the music industry, but each one of those evolutions, it was shorter and shorter. I'm seeing that with the work in the grocery industry. Like at the speed of change, it's just getting more and more condensed. Like it's happening overnight, a 6-month window, 6 months. We think that's a short window. That's actually a long time with change these days compared to what it used to be. So it's the speed of change. Like that's one of those things that blows my mind. Like I think as a kid, it used to take forever. Now as an adult, everything's shorter.
Yeah, no, it's an excellent point. We see it everywhere. You see it with technology. I mean, when I started out in the industry, you would have software investments that would take 3 to 5 years to roll out. Right. And then you'd have multiple years where you'd have to recoup the money on that investment. And now you're seeing applications being rolled out in an afternoon, not even a full day. Yep. And it's, and you still have things that take some time, but that's an excellent point. Well, Ryan, I want to thank you for being on the show. It was enlightening and you made me hungry. There's no doubt about that. Talking about grocery and food and sushi and all of that has definitely happened. I love the part about the grocers and the brands working together and looking at sustainability and the innovation with SKU rationalization and robots cleaning floors and doing inventory. This has been enlightening for me. So thank you for the time.
Yeah, thank you both for talking to me this afternoon. I had a great time joining both of you. So thank you.
Thank you for joining the Next Level Supply Chain with GS1 US. If you enjoyed today's show, you can subscribe to our feed or explore more great episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to share and follow us on social media. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.